Welcome to SensifyCare, the podcast and video series that helps you understand your lab tests and your health a whole lot better. I'm your host, Priya. Today, we are diving into something super important for anyone in their 20s, 30s, and even 40s. Which lab tests are actually essential for your long-term health? And to help us out, we have an expert in preventative health with us. Now, just a quick heads up, the information we're about to share is for guidance only, all right? It's not a substitute for professional medical advice. Always talk to your doctor. Okay, let's jump right in. The biggest question I have, and I'm sure a lot of you are thinking the same thing, is I feel totally fine. I'm busy, I'm building my career, living my life. So why on earth should I even think about getting a blood test?
Priya, that is the million-dollar question and honestly the most important one. It is so easy to feel invincible in your 20s and 30s, right? But this time is a really critical window for preventing problems down the road. So today, we're going to pull back the curtain on some hidden risks from our modern lifestyles. Then we'll do a kind of health audit for your energy levels. We'll also investigate some super common deficiencies. And finally, we'll show you how to turn these test results from just a single snapshot into a long-term story about your health.
All right, I'm hooked. Let's start with that first point. Feeling fine, but maybe not being fine. What are the biggest hidden dangers lurking from our modern lifestyle of stress, long work hours, and maybe a few too many takeout meals? Well, the biggest risks are the ones that are totally silent, the ones that build up over years. That's why the absolute foundation of any checkup is what we call the metabolic health panel. This isn't about finding out if you're sick today. It's about looking into the future and assessing your risk for three of the biggest lifestyle conditions out there: heart disease, diabetes, and liver issues. First up, the lipid profile. This is your cholesterol test. It checks your good HDL and your bad LDL cholesterol. The simplest way to think about the bad kind is that it can slowly, quietly start to clog up your arteries. It's a huge, silent risk for heart disease, precisely because it has zero symptoms. You won't feel a thing. So getting a baseline number in your 20s is absolutely crucial. If everything looks good, checking in every 4 to 6 years is a pretty smart plan. Next is blood sugar, and this one is a game changer. You see, a simple fasting sugar test just tells you what was happening that one morning. But the HbA1c test, it's way more powerful. It gives you a stable 3-month average of how well your body is managing sugar. Think of it as a report card for the whole semester, not just one pub quiz. It's the best tool we have to catch the early warning signs of prediabetes. For most healthy adults, a check every 3 years is a really solid move. And the third pillar of this core check is the liver function test, or LFT. A lot of people hear liver damage and they immediately think of alcohol. But a much bigger and growing concern nowadays is something called non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, or NAFLD. It's tied directly to our modern diets, lots of processed foods and just not moving around as much. And LFT can pick up the very first signs of liver stress, which gives you a chance to make lifestyle changes before any real damage is done. Okay, that makes a ton of sense as a baseline. So what about beyond those big metabolic risks? What tests should we think about for a more regular, maybe a yearly check-in on just our general well-being, our energy, our immunity? I swear, every single person I know complains about being tired all the time. Oh, absolutely. For that constant, nagging fatigue, we look at two main things. First is the complete blood count, the CBC. I like to call this your body's general report card. It gives us a really broad look at your health and can screen for common energy sappers like anemia or even a low-grade infection. Then we have the TSH test. This checks your thyroid, which is basically the engine of your metabolism. An underactive thyroid is a surprisingly common and often missed reason for feeling tired, gaining weight for no reason, and even feeling a bit down. It feels like everyone is talking about vitamin deficiencies and hormones these days. It's all over social media. Why is this suddenly such a huge topic, and what tests are really necessary for people our age? I mean, how do we figure this out without getting totally overwhelmed? It's a huge topic because, our lifestyles have just changed so much. We spend way more time inside, our diets are different, and this has created a perfect storm for what I call office lifestyle deficiencies. And there are two key nutrients in particular that have a massive impact on how you feel every single day. The two biggest culprits are vitamin D and vitamin B12. Since we spend so much time indoors, we're just not getting the sun exposure we need for vitamin D, which is so important for our immune system. And with dietary changes, especially for vegetarians, B12 levels can drop, and that's essential for energy. The really tricky part is that the symptoms, like fatigue, brain fog, weakness, are so vague that we just blame them on stress. That's why getting a simple, one-time baseline screen for both is such a good idea, just to see where you're at. And look, we have to talk about sexual health. A truly comprehensive health check includes it. It's just a key part of being a responsible adult. The guidelines are pretty clear. An annual screening for chlamydia and gonorrhea is recommended for sexually active women under 25, and at least one baseline HIV test for all sexually active adults. And here's the most important thing to remember. Many of these infections have no symptoms at all. You can't just rely on how you feel. Testing is the only way to know for sure.
This has been so helpful and clear. So let's put all the pieces of the puzzle together. How often do I actually need to do this full panel of tests? And how does one lab report actually help me in the long run? What's the point?
That's a great question. So here's a smart schedule to think about. Your metabolic health checks, that's cholesterol and HbA1c, should probably happen every 1 to 3 years. For things like your general wellness and vitamin levels, the best thing to do is get that initial baseline, and then you just retest as you need to or if symptoms pop up. And sexual health screenings, they're either an annual thing or a one-time baseline check. For most healthy adults, doing a big, comprehensive checkup every year or two is a fantastic way to stay on top of your health.
And that really brings us to the most important point of all. I want you to think of it this way. A single lab report is just a snapshot. It's one picture on one day. And yeah, that's useful. But the real power, the magic, comes from tracking these numbers over several years. Because that's when you stop looking at a snapshot and you start creating a movie of your health. And you can actually see the plot in which direction it's heading. And this is where being able to track your own health data becomes so incredibly powerful. Once you get those baseline tests done, you can start consistently tracking the results year after year. You can actually see the trends. Is your cholesterol slowly creeping up? Is your vitamin D trending down over the winters? This lets you spot those tiny changes early and have much smarter, more proactive talks with your doctor. You're no longer just reacting to one bad number. You're actively managing your own health story.
Wow, thank you so much. That was an incredibly helpful way to look at all of this. It really changes the whole perspective from just getting a test to actually building a long-term health strategy. So the final question for all of you to think about is this. Is your health a single snapshot, or is it a story that you're actively writing?
And just as a final reminder, the information provided here is only for guidance and is not a replacement for medical advice. For any health-related issues, the guidance of a healthcare professional is always advisable.